with the Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yaradua, who is the mover of the motion to amend the Electoral Act to allow for early voting. Now, let's talk about improving election security, which is a significant factor that can make or mar elections. Why does it seem that security agencies have been unable to protect the ballot and election offenders are hardly persecuted?
Well, I think certain amendments are coming up in the Electoral Act. I'm a member of the Electoral Commission, the Committee on Electoral Matters in the National Assembly. We are coming up, God willing, with a lot of amendments, especially as it affects election offenders. You know, we're thinking of a tribunal where that tribunal will be given the sole responsibility of dealing with such matters. And in terms of the security, well, me and you know that we don't have enough security in this country, considering you can see even from the insecurity that we are having. By the time you deploy them to the various ballot, polling units, they may not be enough. But most importantly, I think it's we, the politicians, we have to do the needful by ensuring that we do the right thing. Because most of the crises come from the politicians who want to win by all means necessary. So it is very important for the participants, as the politicians, to ensure that they do the right thing. Okay. Because we are the ones who instigate most of the youth to go and cause violence on election day.
I hope we're not neglecting of the fact that we are in a financial constraint in Nigeria. I'm saying this in respect of our normal cycle of election. We have 2 stages of election. Now we're going to be introducing early voting. Is it not possible for Nigeria to have general election on one day? Do we have to have it at intervals? You have the early voting, then you have all the election for president, governors, lawmakers on the same day. Why split?
Well, we are thinking of that too. I believe there is a bill on that issue that is coming up in the National Assembly. We also believe it's quite possible, to hold election in one day so that you reduce the cost of logistics, the cost of financing the election itself. Because it's quite tedious, not only for INEC and the staff and the essential workers, it's also tedious for the politicians because you have to go back and start campaigning, for another round of election. Sure. So I think if we have all the elections in one day, it will help reduce, the financial burden on the government on that aspect, and also the logistics, burden on INEC itself.
Diaspora voting is also another matter that is on the front burner. I understand that there's a bill also in the House of Representatives that has scaled through second reading. Does your bill also capture that, clause for diaspora voting?
Not really, because I looked at the diaspora voting. There's a lot to be done. One, in terms of how they will vote over there. Because there has to be, to me, there has to be some collaboration between the government of that country and our embassy. So I think INEC will have to sit and find a way, the framework or mechanism in which our brothers and sisters out there, can be given that opportunity to vote. So I think with time, and if the bill passes, of course, INEC will have to sit and all hands will have to be on deck to ensure, that those in diaspora also are given that opportunity to vote.
Well, let's talk about a bigger issue, which is improving the efficiency in the electoral system. There are still unresolved electoral reform issues which continue to erode confidence and trust in the elections. Does the country need new electoral laws and guidelines, or is just about ensuring compliance with the existing laws?
Yeah, we still need amendments. At the same time, compliance is necessary. These are 2 issues. Because as you make the laws, you have to ensure you implement them. And in the process of implementation, obviously you could find, some hitches here and there. And that's why we are trying to amend. I will give you an example with the political parties. They are supposed to, during their congresses, they are supposed to make sure that they submit the list of their members to INEC during congresses. But that does not happen. The law is there. So what we are trying to do today is to amend the law to say, okay, if you don't submit the list to INEC, then your Congress is not going to take place. INEC will not recognize anybody that is voted there. Same thing for the primary elections. So you see, this will force political parties to ensure that they submit the list of their members, participating in both congresses and primary elections, and as well as all the members of the political party, because it's important for INEC to have those data, to have the records, so that once a political party is going into primary elections or congresses, INEC has the list of those that are participating. So we are now amending the law to ensure that any party that does not submit such a list will be excluded, and they won't have candidates, on election day. So such laws have to be amended. So it is important from time to time, every election cycle, the Electoral Act is looked into based on the election that was conducted, to see what are the areas that needs to be amended so that, we make it more efficient.
Well, as interesting as this bill is, we saw during the debate that there was one dissenting voice in the chamber, and that is Senator Titus Zam. He was opposing it and saying, given it could be compromised. Do you also think that this is an issue that should be considered?
Well, I think he did not understand initially what the bill was all about. He thought, he was thinking maybe those that are essential workers are not supposed to vote, because he felt maybe there would be double, they are supposed to ensure the sanctity of the election. So they are supposed to be non-partisan, but that is not the case. The Constitution gives every Nigerian over the age of 18, the opportunity to cast his vote. So the fact that I'm an ad hoc worker does not mean I don't have somebody in mind to vote for. So he misunderstood the bill, and if you hear the debate, even the Senate President, the President of the Senate then, who presided, drew his attention to the fact that we are talking about those essential workers on election day. So he felt that, for example, INEC officials are not supposed to vote because they are not, that they should be impartial. But it is their constitutional right to vote. And impartial in the sense that how? If you go to the polling unit, there's no way any of the workers can influence, the results of the election, because Nigerians are there to vote. So they also have their right to vote.
I want us to dwell on this other aspect. In the last election, we're supposed to have this electronic transmission. Now, is that aspect being dealt with now? That we're going to, I know after, during the election, results are uploaded, and also when it now comes to the aspect of the counting, sorting and the counting of the votes, does the present law, do you need an amendment to accommodate that aspect so that we don't just depend on manual? We don't resort back to manual, having done electronic transmission, then we just have that also, the online vetting of the votes.
Yes, we are working on that, on the electronic voting. But we cannot also discount, the manual, because if anything goes wrong, considering the situation in Nigeria today, for example, if you don't have light, how do you transmit the results? So you have to rely on the manual. So the manual will still be important, but what we hope to do is to ensure that the electronic voting takes place. So we are working on that.
Okay.
You also mentioned that you were in South Africa to monitor their last election. What are the important innovations besides early voting that you feel is worth considering in our own elections?
Yes, I think one of the innovations I think is worth considering is the fact that INEC will have to be more transparent, because what I saw there, the platform and software used by the electoral body in South Africa, they call upon political parties to come and inspect the software itself, the algorithm used in the software. So they call their computer experts to check, and that gives confidence and transparency to the system. So I think it's important for INEC to look into that, so that whatever platform they are using, let the political parties have the confidence by sending their own computer experts to check. Of course, thereafter, the algorithm can always be changed to ensure that, hacking does not take place. But that is one innovation that I saw, and I think is very important, because it will give more confidence, to political parties and to Nigerians as well.
Okay, let me just a bit go away from this amendment and order. You're a politician also. Ahead of the 2027 election, there's been a lot of alignment and realignment of political forces. Now, what are your thoughts on these movements up and down? And also, Nigerians will say that political parties seem not to have ideology. Everybody move from party A to party B and all that. Well,
yes, I'm a politician, but I think I would say it's not time for that. But, in politics, everybody, looks at what his interest is, and he pursues that interest. But as for me, we have work to do to ensure that we do what we are voted for, and when the time comes for politics, we put up, a scoreboard for the voters to look at.
I'll bring you back to the bill. Do you expect that if this bill is passed, it will immediately become law? That is, it will get presidential assent?
By the grace of God, I believe the president will assent to the bill if it gets to him, because he's a believer of democracy, and I know he's working hard to ensure that our election becomes more transparent, and so Nigerians have confidence in democracy as a whole. So I believe the president will assent to the bill.